Multiculturalists. Welcome to the Multiculturalists. I'm James, and tell you what, MC Crowd, it's time to get into a special opening that I just got. With the handiwork of some, making sure that my address isn't on here anywhere else. With the handiwork of people, I just got a package from Renegade Studios that I had ordered, and it is of a very particular version of how can I say? It's a kind of campaign setting. Oh, God. Oh! It's a campaign setting of something very particular, okay? This is, bum. As soon as I can get this. Chicago by Night. This is from the World of Darkness, and it is they're saying a source book. That's the title of it. Source book for Vampire the Masquerade, 5th edition. Is it 5th edition? No, 5th edition is D&D. This is 7th edition, if I remember. Yeah. Okay. So, now considering this, let's see this. Has a nice kind of, it has a very similar texture to Call of Cthulhu books the moment that I open this. This is a source book. I just bought this. Now, I did buy some dice. It's not in here. The dice are not in here. Oh, but they say, okay. Well, it said that I was only, said that I was only given that. I might have to talk to somebody about the dice part then. In any case, here is what the book says on the back. I'll go ahead and read this. Accept no substitutes. Chicago is the city of vampires. Claim a haven on the Gold Coast. Carve out a place on this bustling metropolis for yourself. Subjugate a handful of the living on Michigan Avenue. Take a few deep drinks from some of the intoxicating vessels we have around here. Discover the nightlife. Come visit the Succubus Club. That's an awesome club. All right, the Blue Velvet or Red Number 5 if they let you in. The guest list is pretty damn exclusive. That's fun. I like how they say that there. Introduce yourself to the Ventru Prince. Get to know his vision. Buy into it. Serve it. Stay on his good side. And your immortality is going to be just fine. Just ignore the purges of anarchs, thin bloods, and fledglings when it grows inconvenient. Yeah? Okay, so interesting. Factional warfare going on, or, yeah, issues there within the Ventru, or the Ventru? I'm assuming the Camarilla, or, the Camarilla. Then let's say, buy into it, serve it, stay on his good side, just ignore the purchase, okay, stay invested in the Camarilla, that's the next sentence, and it'll stay invested in you. Remember who's got your back and who can take that backing away in the blink of an undead eye. So the Camarilla basically are the system. They are the who's who of society. They are the governing body, or the attempt to put some kind of governance over vampire kind internationally within the world. The Camarilla basically operate as an organization of hierarchy in order to just simply structure how vampires or kin are to act in accordance and continue the masquerade, and who violates it will then be dealt with, favors that are then asked, stuff like this, all this kind of stuff, Don't go digging into business that doesn't concern you. Don't go wandering into territory you don't know because someone will claim your skull as a trophy. Don't screw around with a kindred's kind, or you'll find your own murdered and dropped into a dumpster. And that'll be just the start of your problems. Chicago can be everything for a vampire like you. You just have to accept Chicago into your heart. Become part of the city. Okay. Also, this is interesting. They include a little bit, I don't know if you can see this, so they include a little bit blurb about Chicago and what that involves then. I will say this, though. Although it's a very colorful front, you can see here, it's not as shiny as like a D&D book first, and it's not, if I'm being fair, it's not as colored in or as crisp as the other. Let me get this for a second. As this book, as the general book, which I might go over this in some time. This one is like, it's much more, the colors are much more clean. This one looks like this, if you can see them side by side here. Chicago by Night and then Vampire Masquerade. This one seems to have more noise or interference with the picture. Like if you could imagine this was a photograph picture being taken, there's just a lot more what look like individual splotches there. And I think most people understand what noise or interference is at this point with cameras. Like when you're taking a picture at night and it doesn't seem crisp and you try and bump up the brightness and the brightness just kind of reveals like a little bit of very, very small pock marks of, how can I say, undefined lines. It's the information isn't getting there. But if you look at this is really crisp. Like you can see, this feels like this was a photo done for a model, and then they just went and did some other, some rearranging of like how to then bring out the sharpness of the photo. Like even here, like the gold necklace around that. That has a lot more detail than if you look at the book of the Chicago by Night here. So I find that to be a little bit sad. Granted, this one was $40. I was able to find over in actually a general bookstore that had a gaming section, which was cool to see. This one came from online. I guess I'll see what it's like on the inside, but let me get to the Chicago by Night includes. A history of Chicago from multiple vampire perspectives and accounts of the domain as it exists in the modern nights, along with the systems of how to run the city like the twisted, dysfunctional machine it is. An introduction for the clan of knights' entry to the Camarilla and rules for playing La Sombra in the Vampire the Masquerade, including their discipline of Oblivion. So, the La Sombra, which is another faction, it's another clan that you can be for the within the world of darkness for Vampire. That's really cool. Yeah, one of the things that I'm not really happy about with the V7th edition, I think, or rather this edition, I think this is version 7th ed, is that I had heard about this in the beginning, and I think I'm going to stick with it too. I don't like the business side of this, into which it forces you to then buy all these other products into then looking at what, printed in Lithuania. I didn't see that. That's interesting. This is my first product that was printed in Lithuania or had anything to do with Lithuania, I guess. Sorry, that's just an interesting side note. And the issue that I have with this generally is going to be that they put the different. It's kind of like what 4th ed did, right? You have a list of general classes that you can be in terms of Dungeons and Dragons, 4th edition. 5th edition comes with all the general races that you can be. Like you can be a half-elf, a half-orc, a human, a gnome, a dragonborn, a halfling, a tiefling, and I think that's it. And maybe there's a couple others that I'm not there. Oh, a dwarf and just straight-up elf. Those are the general ones that you get with the player's handbook. And that's kind of always been the way that it is. Now, later editions do bring out other races that you can be with the books, and that's cool. That encourages you to get those books for what is the edition. However, if you have a precedent for already having a certain number or certain type of characters embedded into the core books, and then you start divvying them up in a new edition to these other books that you will eventually print, that feels like nickel and diming the players. And I can't really argue with anybody who would be disappointed or rather even, frustrated with World of Darkness for doing this with Vampire 7th edition. The fact is that if you do this, it feels like you're trying to get more money out of them for the basic things that they're already looking for. And it's a way for you to serve the company in getting more money than it necessarily does trying to then find a way to better help the player base that you're trying to adhere to. I would be upset if D&D, like if one D&D, right, came out with special prices for half-elf and half-orc. and did not include them within like whatever base character generator that you're going to get with one D&D. That would feel like they're trying to then focus on the finances of that and then take your money, and I really I'd be upset with that. 4th edition didn't exactly do that. They didn't do that. They didn't take base characters and then divvy them up, but they did continuously print a new book out, another new book out, and they didn't really add too much to the player dynamics or what you could do. They gave you options, but they weren't exciting in general. They were slight mechanical tunes that didn't really do anything in terms of the mechanics of combat. And what I mean by that is for player options. There are campaigns that could give you a lot, but in any case, this isn't a 4th ed video. This is just me talking about this. All right. Continuing, over 50 individual kindred with biographies, ambitions, source secrets, and relationships, and reasons for inclusion in any given chronicle, along the fiction illustrating these characters and key locations around the city. A multitude of chronicle hooks covering everything from the beast and the hunger to humanity and hierarchy, and a single chronicle in which La Sombra makes it their mission to join elite ranks of the Camarilla. Oh, interesting. Multitude of chronicle hooks such as the beast and the hunger to humanity and the hierarchy. Okay, and a single large chronicle. Okay, so there's a large, maybe kind of adventure thing, in which the La Sombra make it their mission to join the elite ranks of the Camarilla. That's interesting. Okay, so yeah, a Camarilla is more of like Camarilla is not to be very clear, Camarilla is not a clan. It's politics. That's the easiest way to understand it. The politics that you usually have are anarchs, and then Camarilla. So basically it's Camarilla, the system, the governing system of vampires, and then the people, the political faction that breaks away from that. Right? We're more independent, blah, 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 that kind of thing. And all of it is very hierarchical, which is interesting. So La Sombra is trying to get into the ranks of Camarilla as like being part of the clan. This clan wants to be part of that, seen as being primarily associated with those politics, which is interesting. Then let's see. Hunger, humanity, large chronicles, La Sombra, and make it their interesting. Coteries, which basically is like your cohorts, your buddies. You know, like if you're at the table and your buddies are around, that's your coterie. You know, the people who you're going to hang out with, your adventuring party, to use D&D terms. Illustrating the factionalism of Chicago's kindred and new coterie examples for your characters. Okay, Chicago coteries, details there. Lore sheets for characters new or already based in Chicago. Cool. Providing players easy ways to integrate their characters into the book's many stories. Cool. I love the fact that there are ways to integrate people into this. Yeah, because when I read Vampire, it seems like a much more... Vampire the Masquerade, it seems much more based into roleplay than it does necessarily like combat or things like that. And that's interesting because it then poses this question, well, what are you going for? Because it's not gold and XP like it would be in D&D. And it then makes this question, well, how do you introduce somebody into a story? What are these stories that you're going to get into? How do you develop it? And I think it's really cool because you can then explore these hooks that they're going to provide you with, or at least, new, it says, what's it say? Lore sheets for characters new or already based, so new. Providing players easy ways to integrate their characters into the book's many stories. So there's different stories here. Let me go ahead and then look at some of these. Ooh, okay, maybe I'm going to change my mind. The inside, so this, just to get this looking on here, this is very sleek. The inside is very sleek here. And the quality of the picture just heightened by far. So I might take back what I said about, being disappointed by the art. But I'll say that might be the cover art. And maybe there's like more cool stuff here. I'm not going to go through all the details, but I'm going to go through the chapters, okay? The general chapters. Chapter 1, The World of Chicago. A lot of stuff. Sharon and Damien's workers. Where's Tia? Shifting crowns. 4 trips to the second city. Red number 5. Chapter 2, Welcome to the Night. The Deal. La Sombra in Society. Keepers become magisters. Chapter 3, The City. A Tale of Two Cities. The Fifth Star, Fifth of White. The Machine, Homesteading. The Marks, Blue Bar, Spirit of City. Red Stars. Chapter 4, Kindred of Chicago. The Banu Hakim. Okay, so there's more here. These are clans. Okay, Banu Hakim are clans. Clan Bruja, so those are the more rebellious ones. The Caitiff, I keep forgetting what the Caitiff are. Oh, the Caitiff, I think it's the Thin Bloods and the Caitiff. Caitiff have almost no powers, if I'm correct. I might be wrong about that. You know what? Don't quote me on that. But if I understand, Caitiff don't have nearly as many powers. Thin Blood just have their powers, but they're much, much more diluted. And the Caitiff and the Thin Bloods are really reviled within vampire society. Clan Gangrel, that's much more like bestial kind of clan. La Sombra, I forgot what La Sombra is associated with. Clan Malkavian, I think Malkavian are the ones that were the former sorcerers that became vampires eventually. The Ministry, don't know anything about the Ministry. Clan Nosferatu. Nosferatu are the ones that have a kind of very ugly look to their face, or basically have some kind of either disfiguration, or they just appear much more monstrous or hideous in some form. Thin Bloods basically, I just explained. Clan Toreador. I think Toreador is the one that is the more arts associated. It's the more high bourgeoisie arts. Oh, won't you like the glass of human blood? The year's a little bit bad, they're on in their 70s, but I'm sure with age comes a delicacy that you'd quite enjoy. Something like that, right? Clan Tremere. Keep forgetting what Clan Tremere's about, but Clan Ventru. Clan Ventru is the one. Clan Ventru is basically about the former kings, the people who are then dominators in general, ones who were kind of born to be leaders, like almost from their get-go. Clan 5, Coteries. Coterie format, the Anarch Center, Baby Chorus. I'm wondering what that is. The Blood Disco. I like that name. The Chantry. The Government, the Nihilists, expanded rules for coteries. That's so interesting. I'm so happy that there's like different politics involved with it, and that for coteries, there's types of groups that you can be involved with, and then the politics. So you have like your clans, which basically are like your bloodline all the way back to Cain, essentially, as the lore goes, as it's supposed to be, as it's presented being. To everyone else. Then you have the politics, general politics, like are you part of the Camarilla or are you part of the Anarchists? And I think you could say there was this other book that came out, and I'm forgetting what that was. It'll come back to me. But in any case, the coteries are then further factionalization, and then basically adds a lot of customization, and I think that's great that they add that there. Okay, lore sheets. Annabelle, Ballad Industries, Black Site, Blue Velvet, Book of Nod. Book of Nod's very important. That's basically the story of how vampires came to be, and they're associated with the character Cain from the Bible, the Old Testament. Capone Gang. Cabon. Oh, Al Capone Gang. That's so cool that they have that there. Cultivar, Cult of Shalim, Descendant of Lodin. So, yeah, a lot of more things. Kevin Jackson, First Light, Lupine Expert, Nathaniel Bordriff. The other thing that I like about this, like just going between names, because you could go with something that sounds much more ancient and archaic and even exotic from a North American perspective, meaning that you could engage with other cultures and then use a character from there or a cultural theme from there. But you can also then not necessarily have to have that kind of ancient theme. So to my ear, I'll put it that way. Descendant of Lodin, Descendant of Montano, things like that, right? Make it feel, or cultivar. It sounds, cultivar sounds like that might have like some kind of Latin heritage to it. So that might, one, be much more interesting in terms of like having a culture that's not predominantly like North American, involved with a Chicago-based setting, and one that is also, and then when you get into Descendant of Lodin, that sounds ancient, it sounds epic. But then you go to the next one, some of the other options, Kevin Jackson. Kevin Jackson sounds like a 21st century American name, and so it gives you options to like be either this kind of archaic character or something more modern, and I really like that for the setting. That's something that you don't necessarily get with a lot of D&D settings. This difference between the concept of what would sound archaic, because a lot of the D&D setting is very, well, it's already involved with like the lore of like Lord of the Rings-esque lore. You're dealing with names that you're unfamiliar with, so it all seems new, different to you, foreign to some extent, right? But one of the things that you can get much more clearly in here is an example of different kinds of names, whether they be modern or more culturally familiar or not, or more culturally new to you, or if it's more, it's obvious to you and to the ear a name that would be more archaic versus one that's new. Like, yeah. Like Leviticus versus Lenny, something like that. La Sombra, they go into this La Sombra. Chapter 7, Chicago Chronicles. So I think this might be, well, actually, I don't know. I don't know what these are necessarily. Maybe that's something they could work on. The idea of clearly labeling these. Like, if these are campaign elements, or if they are just simply like campaign settings, meaning that if they're adventures themselves. So the difference between adventures and then a campaign setting, right? I think they can do a better job of then clearly labeling that. So that's one. Champagne. Would you like some champagne, sir? Yes, and I'd like a champion while I'm at that. Would you like to read the chapter 8? Yes, I'd like to do that too. All right, chapter 8, The Sacrifice. Introduction, part one way. New Blood. Be Our Guest. Elysium. Bloody Bargain. I like the the different names associated with it. It does feel much more like you're reading a novel than anything else. But again, I think for the sake of like someone who would be running it, I'm trying to remember what the name is. I'll eventually remember it. The Keeper is for Call of Cthulhu. Dungeon Master is TM. Referee is... Oh, the narrator. I think that's right. Oh, the storyteller. That's right. Storyteller. So storyteller for Vampire the Masquerade. For the storyteller, you want it clear for them. It's cool that you get them invested and involved into a book, especially if they're reading it, just like a nice book to read for the sake of reading a book. That's cool. On that part, however, I'd say for the sake of convenience, try and make them much more clearly laid out where the sections are so you can put together something for your table when you need it. Because you don't want to have to go through a novel when you have like a Saturday game that you're preparing for, 6, Shadow Hunt. Chapter 7, The Sacrifice. Epilogue, antagonist stats. And boom! It's already off to a great start. Ah, okay. I love this. Look at the art in this. Look at this art. This art is beautiful. So maybe it's on purpose that the outside art is the way that it is. The inside art really, really makes up for it. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why you have as expensive a price as you have for these. This one was about $50 for Chicago by Night. Like I said, $40 for the, and this has been some time after it's already been out for a bit, for the core rulebook, Vampire the Masquerade. Jewels have many facets, World of Chicago. Then let's see. Look at this. I'll try and just go through this. Let's see. Let the Streets Run Red. So advertising for other games. I have some stats in the back. What are the stats about? The stats... Dignitaries and debutantes. Elysia. Oh, that's so interesting. The occult scene. So you then have for the occult, the underworld, the dragoon. Interesting. I always love having different tables to roll because it's fun to see them. And for Vampire the Masquerade, you use D10s as being the main dice that you have. Oh my God, that's beautiful. It's very horrific, but it's beautiful. Oh God, yeah. This picture of someone burning by a chair. Jeez, yikes. So I'm assuming that's some form of a vampire being put to death via fire, which is a pretty horrific way to go, to be completely honest. Yeah, the art on the inside really does make up for the outside. Oh, this is good. I'm glad that they have things like this. So this is for whatever part of the government is. They have a whole section on talking about where the hierarchy is. And I like that they present it a little bit differently as like a circle instead of necessarily a pyramid kind of top-down hierarchical system. And you can see that where they all are associated. And same thing, the Chantry gets it as well. These characters, who are you talking to? Yeah. And there's a whole one of the other things I like is the diversity in here. You see like a lot of different ethnic representations in here. So that's really cool. Baby Chorus, the same thing happening. And that's for the coterie section. Oh, okay. Mask and Men. there's a lot of different profile pictures here that you can go through. The Thin Bloods, which is good then. That means then you can then take from these characters, and then if there's like a PDF version available for it, you can then just take that and then use it for some kind of presentation if you're using like a virtual tabletop. Honestly, for something like Vampire the Masquerade, I don't know that you need a virtual tabletop except for maybe double checking that rolls are being done correctly or nobody's like cheating on the rolls or anything like that. KDIF, tons of profile pictures. Oh, beautiful. This is a look at this picture. Beautiful. It's almost like it's a sunrise. I really like that the moon has that kind of, yeah, almost like a sun tint to it. Like this is where people come to be active and lively instead of necessarily the opposite, you know? Yeah, I really like that. Beautiful, beautiful different like lining on the, or coloration with something just like the blue and the Chicago city lights in the background, just kind of lightly overlaid on top of him. And everything else being very, very like, that's a beautiful picture. That's a beautiful man. Look at that. Ow. Look at that hottie. Oh, that's so good. Thank God. So they actually give you a map of Chicago too. And that's so cool. They put on, they make it specific to the scenario itself too. So they see like there's an area that says no feeding. You can see it down here. Malkavian, Nosferatu, Meeting Spot, Knight's Cross. And they have like the main streets that are there. Waunica, last known Nikolai sighting. That's so cool. Malkavian, Nosferatu Meeting Spot. That's so cool that they have that. That's so cool. Oh, man. Man, that actually does get me excited to like play a Vampire the Masquerade setting, because if you ever like you could actually get like a map out of Chicago. Hey, and there, look, same thing. There's a Chicago West Side here as well. That's awesome. And you can just get out like a map of Chicago, or just like your, you know, your general GPS, and then try and see where these areas would be in Chicago. And then, yeah, if you want to, like even role play going to a restaurant that you know in reality might exist in Chicago, but you do it in the game, and you go there and hang out. Like you go to Wrigley Field, and you want to go to a specific bar that's in Wrigley Field in reality, and you and everyone else in this game then go there. That's a very interesting point that I think any kind of like modern game can then tout. Again, I'll because D&D is kind of like the go-to for TTRPG at this point, just in general. Having fantasy setting there and then understanding all the different like geographic layouts is fun because it's all new, but getting to do something that's role-playing while then doing it within the context of, hey, these are actual spots you could go to, and then ask the question, hey, storyteller, can I go over to Wrigley Field? You know, I hear that, you know, these two teams are going to be facing off against each other, you know, and I really like one team over the other. And like just add that into the story. That's so cool. That goes again with this whole idea that like you could have a character called Leviticus versus Lenny, and has that modern flavor to it. Love that. West Side. Downtown Chicago's here too. I love that there's, oh my God! Do not enter until all Lupines confirm. Oh my God. Wow. Look at this. It's a whole map. It's a whole big map. And this area right here, do not enter, where you see that red, do not enter until confirmed all lupines are eliminated. That's brilliant. So lupines are basically, they're the lycanthropes. They're the werewolves of the setting. Man, that's so cool. And then they have these different areas. Oh my God, that's so cool. I love this. And you get, so downtown Chicago, you got some of the symbols, like the political and factional symbols and the clan symbols associated here. I think was this is the Toreador. I think this is Toreador or Tremere. I forget which. The hoity-toity artsy scene is down here. And then you have the Anarchs in the north side. Chinatown has, I forgot what that is. I think those are the Malkavians. And then I forgot what these ones are either. And maybe these are the Tremere, the kingly symbol with the sword there. or no, not the Tremere, the Ventru. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, and then the Gangrel, I'm fairly sure, are the wolf symbol down here. But that's so interesting. They have all these different vampire associations around here, but still they have their specific places. Berwyn, for whatever reason, is where, like, lupines are, where the lycanthropes are. And they say, do not enter until lupines are all confirmed eliminated. So that's interesting. You can definitely work with that. To have that be an area of conflict, that maybe someone from your clan goes over there and then you haven't seen them for a while and they have some kind of important information that they don't know if they're like actually dealing with a lupine or if they've been eaten by a lupine, and then one of your guys has to go from the main downtown area for Chicago and then go all the way over to the lupine area and then see if there's any kind of problem there. I love that. Oh, I love that a map's given of this. That's so cool. Very good, good. Okay, so there's gunfire. But I love that. Yeah, the idea that you're hanging out at a bar. Oh, that's so crazy. So then you have the city, right? So it looks like a normal bar scene until you look at what the girl on top of the man is doing and having a bit of a drink. It's not Coca-Cola. Might be a little bit of cherry cola, you know what I'm saying. It's Bloods, that's what I'm saying. That's what the joke was. Thank you for sticking around here so much. Oh. And some of this art. Oh, this is just the art on the inside. Okay. General, first initial view. Maybe I'll call this a medium review, and then I'll make like a really short review because I know this is way too long as it is already. Like a 5-minute review or something. This is great. I'm so happy that I got this. I was wondering whether I should get this for Vampire the Masquerade or not because I have the book and I could just make up a scenario and look for it online. And there are some beginning scenarios like the Auld Swell or Auld Sanguine. Scenario is one that you can get and download for free, and then introduce your players to the general world. But Chicago is close by to me, so I really like the fact that Chicago is the scenario that they got here, and that there's then all these different areas plotted out for how the Vampire Association is then there. Vampires on one end, lupines on the other, and then talking about the dynamics, the La Sombra trying to become part of the Camarilla is very interesting. So I'm so excited about that, and I'm excited to delve deeper into this. All right, that's been an initial view of Vampire the Masquerade for Chicago by Night. That's the source book for Vampire the Masquerade. That's 7th edition, and thank you for being here. And I'll see you next time, Multiculturalists. Bye-bye.